right. Well, welcome to the Broker Collective podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Malone, president of HRO and the Broker Collective. And I have Dakota with me today. Man, I'm excited to have this conversation. He runs a group called Covenant Insurance Services. And, no secret, the past few years have been, I think, pretty brutal on a lot of folks in the insurance industry, but there's still, we partner with about 80 agencies, and there's still some that are killing it, still some that are doing well. I think Dakota and his group, they're still doing really well, finding ways to, sustain growth and find some really good success. And so, I really just wanted to have a great conversation today, just talking about sales and business development and growth and really what's working today. Like, what's working today versus, maybe, what's not working, or, compared now versus 2020, right? And some of the things that are maybe working today that you're doing differently. But Dakota, maybe give us a little bit of an intro just of yourself and your agency real quick.
Yeah. So, well, Marcus, thank you for having us on. We appreciate it. But yeah, so I opened a Scratch Agency 2018, Covenant Insurance, and I'd been in insurance since late 2012, and kind of fell into it, kind of like everybody else, right? It's like didn't really choose it; it kind of just fell in my lap, honestly, and fell in love with it. But so we opened in 2018, opened the own agency, and kind of went from there. And so we've experienced some hard times, obviously, with a Scratch Agency, and taught us a lot very early on, and kind of had to navigate some of that new stuff. I was a really good producer, right? But a lot of the intangibles that come with actually running an agency, I wasn't very good at, and so I had a whole lot to learn really, really fast. And so there was a lot of that took place. And but we've experienced the hard market, like everybody else has this past couple of years or so. And so and I guess we'll dive into more of that as we go on. But the biggest things, I guess, that we have found, as we're navigating some of this, is like, can't sell on price, right? Like whenever it comes to a hard market, whenever it comes to that stuff, it's like pricing is that's just a very small part of kind of what we're dealing with at this point. And people, that's the biggest point to a consumer, right? But once we can educate them and tell them, like, hey, this is a very small part of what's happening with your insurance, and here's how we can help the price, sure, but there's a lot of other stuff playing into this, and that's helped us for sure.
Yeah, well, I think that's a tough part of it too. Sometimes it's like, your prospect is so locked in on the price, and sometimes, it's sticker shock. You see the quote or you get a big renewal, and then it's like, how do you get the prospect to shift their mindset to like really thinking about big picture and strategy, and to allow you to really kind of come in and do what you do, right? And really build value, and make it about something more than just a price on the paper.
Right.
With y'all's agency, I know we had a little bit of conversation before the call. I guess a couple things real quick that'll be helpful. Lines of coverage that you guys are focusing. Are you P&C and benefits, or just P&C? And do you also do personal lines?
Yeah. So we focus on P&C. We do have the benefits side of things that we do as well for some of our middle market stuff. We don't really write small group benefits. It's usually 20 plus, right? Which I guess in most cases that is still a small group, but so yeah, mostly PNC. We do write benefits. We write personal lines, but it's mostly commercial. We're probably 95% commercial.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you see a mix out there. I mean, I feel like probably of the roughly 80 agencies we partner with, I mean, most of them are going to be 80% one way or the other.
Right.
You don't see a whole lot that, unless they've got a big team,
Sure.
because there's just so much. I mean, there's it's a different message, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Message and different servicing that goes into it as well. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm really just curious. I mean, I know, you came into this thing, what, 2018 you mentioned?
Yeah.
And a lot's changed since then, right? Obviously the pandemic.
Yeah, it has.
That was a major, I think, shock to our system. I mean, for us, it was a blessing in disguise, and it kind of, is what gave us the push to move into, creating partnerships and that's what led to the Broker Collective and really the growth that we've had. But just kind of curious, I mean, you guys are having success today. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe, give us a little bit of, feedback on what are some of the, primary things that you attribute the growth today to.
Right. Well, I'll start from the beginning, right? So 2018 was right before COVID. We had really a year and a half, before COVID really went full blown. And like I said, we were a scratch agency. So it was like, oh
Mhm.
man, we were I was borderline panic mode. My wife was like, it's gonna be fine, so a lot of what we were doing just all of a sudden stopped working. Like, I mean, I was kind of, I guess, old fashioned in that way. Like I would just go knock on doors, go business to business. And that was how I, just establish relationships and stuff. And so that had to completely change. And for me, it was probably a little bit easier of a transition. A little bit of a computer nerd, and so I was fine with implementing more technology. I was okay with that. Well, what I found is that when I started implementing more technology, that made it not only easier for me to do my job, but easier for customers to do business with me. It made it a lot. I mean, it was better. Like everybody liked it better. It was faster. It was more profitable. It was more efficient. And then it was just kind of, it just happened, organically at that point. It was like, okay, I need to optimize this. Like this is a good aspect.
Right.
And so I pivoted a lot, in that regard, and really rode hard on tech for, late 2019 and all of 2020. And then in 2020 by itself, we wrote about 3.5 million in premium.
Okay.
And most of the brunt of that was trucking. And so which there was also a trucking boom in 2020, and that played into it. Well, what we found is that after 2020 and 2021, a lot of those carriers that started up said, "Oh, we can't stay in business anymore because trucking's slowing down," right? And
Yeah.
so we lost a lot of customers in 2022. And so again, we had to pivot, right? And it was like, well, what do we do now? And so we had a like an all hands on deck meeting. It's like, hey, this is what's happening, and we got to move fast. Like we have to change something really quickly. Otherwise, Covenant will not be around in a couple of years, And so
Yeah.
we kind of hedged all of our bets. And this was very short sighted on my part, on our part. But we kind of hedged all our bets on one niche. And what happens when you do that, and that's okay, to have niches, and we do. But what I found is that you need more than one, right? Because
Yeah.
you're affected by the ebbs and flows of that industry as well. And anybody that's in trucking can testify, that like, hey, it's a volatile industry. It changes with the economy, it changes with politics, it changes with a lot of different things. And so not only was that industry susceptible to it, but because we were so heavily invested in it, we were also susceptible to things that were happening. And so at that point, what we had to do is we had to say, okay, we can't just ride this. We have to not necessarily diversify to a whole bunch of niches, but we need to spread out a little bit and pick better business. And that was where really the risk side of what we focus on now kind of was birthed, right? And so it was like we got to lead with something else. It's not going to be price. It's not going to be transactional. It has to be, a relationship, and it has to be something a lot more deeper than just the pricing of a quote, right? And so we had to pivot to that, and we had to pivot to it hard, and that made some of the customers not happy, and so we lost some more because of that. Um,
Sure.
I'd have to go back and look at the number that we lost in 2022, but it was a very large amount. And so, but once we pivoted to kind of that aspect, that risk management mindset, right? Like we're not leading with price, we're leading with risk management and workers' comp and maybe some OSHA stuff, and just putting all that together. We found that the business that we were writing was very sticky business. It was good
Yeah.
business. They were good referral partners. They referred well. And it just kind of created that culture for our producers and for everybody else. It's like,
Yeah.
we want good business because they've seen the difference, right?
It's amazing. You guys' journey sounds so similar to ours, man.
Really?
It really takes a tremendous amount of, really, just, I don't know what you want to say. We'll keep it PC on here, but it takes guts
Yeah.
and courage and commitment, man, to make those pivots. But that's something like for me, like you see so many, we still talk to so many agencies today, and it's like it's amazing how much they just kind of cling to the old ways
Sure.
that they've
Yeah.
always done things. And then they're hanging on to this book of business that they have left, and they're scared to even go have a conversation with the client because they don't want to rock
Right.
the boat. And they're just
Right.
trying to hang on to what they have, right? They don't really know how to embrace that or really understand the critical nature of just the need to pivot and change. I mean,
Right.
you
Right.
pay attention to what's happening in the market and how people are buying today. And you guys
Absolutely.
have went through, to be able to, I mean, to get to a place where you go all in and commit to something different, even when you start to see maybe a little bit of a decline. Like you said, you guys had some drop off of clients
Hmm.
when you made some changes, and but you stuck with it. And we did, kind of similar. We started, we were doing the same stuff. Like we were walking indoors, phone calls, emails, walking indoors.
Right.
That's
Right.
how we generate a business. I mean, 90% of the time. And COVID happened, and same kind of thing. It was like we can sit here and not know what's going to happen and just wait it out, and maybe it'll go back to the way it was, or we can, quickly shift and pivot and start trying new things. But you can't be afraid to start trying new things, right? I think that's
Right.
the big thing that it sounds like you did. You guys
Definitely.
were just, putting action behind it and testing new things. And so we did the same. We started kind of down this road of partnerships, and it was, testing out partnering with VC firms and testing out partnerships with law firms and having some success, but also like once we landed on the insurance broker space, it was such a win-win. I mean,
Right.
we're speaking the
Right.
same language, we're speaking to the same target audience. There's, a huge win in this for both of us on so many levels. And so, we did the same thing where we kind of just committed and went all in. And
Right.
what that means is all of a sudden when you pull back your sales force and you're not out there walking indoors and making all these cold calls, and you're taking the time to start building something that's going to, like you did, create more stable and sticky business. It
Right.
takes some time to get there
It does.
first, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's where
for
it's
sure.
like you got that, like it's hard not to be just chewing all your fingernails off all the time, right? Just nervous, like
Definitely.
when you believe in it though, you stick with it, and then you hope it works out. And for us and for you guys, and I mean it did.
Yeah.
But had we not made that move, I mean, we've had record growth for 3 years now, and in a 2-year period, doubled the size of our book of business over 22 and 23. And it was, the partnerships, right? It's generating
Right.
85% of our business for 3 years running. But no, I love to hear that. I mean, it's very similar, but I think it all comes down to just understanding you gotta, not be afraid to test things and pay attention to the market and how people are buying and interacting and how people prefer to be, approached,
For sure.
nowadays, because it's different. Are you guys, I guess outside of your home state, I mean, are you guys writing business across state lines currently?
Yeah, yeah, we do. So we're basically the whole southeast corridor, right? So from Oklahoma over to Florida and down, is kind of
Mhm.
is where we write, and we write in a few northern states: Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I think are the only four that we have that are kind of up north, right? So yeah, we're East Coast, Southeast, and so what however many states that is, 12,
Yeah.
13, or so. And so we ride a lot of trucking, obviously, in those other states.
Yeah.
Oklahoma and Texas is mostly for. So we have basically, kind of 4 or 5 total niches that we really focus on, and that's trucking, manufacturing, contractors, and restaurants. Those are kind of our big four. And
Nice.
obviously within contractors, that's like plumbing, heat and air, service contractor guys. So
You got a
most of
handful, so you got some diversity there, which is nice.
right, right. Yeah, and so most of the everything else besides trucking is Oklahoma, Texas. That's kind of our big two for those.
Yeah.
And that's just because it only takes a couple hours if we have to go meet with them or whatever. Trucking's a
Right.
little more mobile, they're on
Yeah.
the road all the time. So it makes it a little easier to do business with them in different states. We have found it a lot more difficult to do business with a big manufacturing plant or a big
Right.
contractor that's in Tennessee, right? It just makes it more difficult. A lot of those accounts you have to be kind of there, hands on,
Yeah.
um, and and that kind of goes back to how we pivoted, right? It's like once you
Right.
get to those accounts, right, like that ideal client that you've created or that we've created, it's like, okay, I have to be there with them. That relationship requires that, for me to be hands on, and some of it can be done virtually for sure, right? But being able to go there and saying, hey, this is why your X mod increased by 0.4 points.
Right.
And we can walk through the plant, or we can walk through some processes together and sit
Sure.
down and whatever. So makes it a little more difficult to do that stuff across state lines. Right. But
Yeah.
so
No,
trucking's mostly the out of state stuff.
yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Well, what about, I think a lot of folks would be interested just to hear about kind of what prospecting looks like for you guys today. I mean, kind of, what's been successful? How are you guys generating the majority of your quality leads
Yeah.
today?
So my goal at the end of 2023, when we do our, end of year review and our planning for the next year, what I have found is that a lot of our lead sources that we had, they weren't consistent. We'd get a blast for a month here and then a blast for a month from this one.
Yeah.
And so my goal, my own mindset was, well, I want 5 consistent lead sources.
Yeah.
Anything outside of those 5 is great if they come in, we can work on those. But I want at least 5 dedicated lead sources that I can consistently, like if a producer comes in, I can plug them into, right? Like, hey, this is the process for this one, this one, this one, this one. So developed that kind of through the first quarter of 24, got it all finished. And so right now it's very tech heavy,
Yeah.
and we've leaned into that. And so basically now when a producer comes in, we plug them into it. Like, hey, here's the automation that's built out for it. Here's what you need to learn. Here's what you need to do to make it effective, and we kind of hit the ground running. So we use different software, right? Like the X dates, for insurance X dates, we use mod software. We
Sure.
use, we even still buy some leads too. We still buy, commercial leads in some
Right.
regard. So, but that's basically what it looks like. And that has created a very steady, consistent lead flow month in and month out. Where it's not like, oh, the Google ads this month are really hopping, and then next month it's like, oh no, they're not, and so
Right.
we really developed that and kind of hone that stuff in where, we have at least 5 solid sources that's consistently producing every month.
Yeah. So you're running some marketing ads as well. Sounds like you're maybe doing some PPC stuff and
Yeah. Yeah.
some Google ad campaigns. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, when you're doing the ad campaigns, are you guys running those year round? Are you running those kind of specific to target niches?
Yeah. So we kind of, right now I manage all of them. And so at my capacity, whatever I can kind of handle, um, I kind of blast those out, right? Like, okay, this quarter we're going to focus on this, and maybe if it goes really well, we continue that right into the next quarter and maybe through the year, whatever.
Yeah.
But I kind of batch them, if that makes sense.
Right.
On those Google ads, I'll create a batch, and I'll always create my 1 and 2 to kind of compare, all the SEO stuff, whatever. But yeah, usually that's how that looks on the Google ads. But we've been pushing a lot of content out on YouTube as well. And so we try to link all of it together, like on the back end for SEO. And our website is very well optimized. We don't do that, but it's very well optimized for SEO stuff. So a lot of the ads that we run, helps that aspect of it as well. And so we run the Google ads, right? And we put a lot of content out on YouTube. And so it just kind of created a machine where the SEO optimization for our website is kind of building off of that stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because we do a lot of the same stuff, and it's crazy. There's another guy that I follow and we'll be podcasting with soon, Andy Neary, but he talks a lot about, content creation, and he works with insurance brokers specific, but a lot of folks just really fail to understand, I think, the importance of having those
Yeah.
channels, the social platforms, the
Right.
activity on social, and those marketing efforts. I mean, even if they're not leading to conversions right away,
Mm-hmm.
it's still credibility, right? It's
Absolutely.
still when somebody comes across you, you find a new prospect, especially if they're not local in your backyard, they're looking you up, right? And when they see
Right.
that you have a YouTube channel, you're putting out quality content, you're alive and breathing and on these social platforms, and you're a real thing. It just, it helps them understand your brand personality a little bit.
For sure.
Is somebody that I'd want to do business with. And it just kind of helps add, it's an opportunity to build rapport virtually and some credibility. So
Right.
I think
Right.
that's awesome to hear. I'm curious too, just to kind of pivot a little bit from, the prospecting talk, because another big part of this is, I think it's not just getting leads, but I think a lot of folks are struggling now because of the cost, the increases in the market, dealing with
Sure.
inflated quotes and big renewals. And we're definitely aligned in the importance, I think, of approaching the conversation more strategically and with the emphasis
Right.
on solving problems. And so maybe tell us a little bit about like, how do you guys approach conversations with prospects now, knowing that they're concerned about cost and that's a focal point, but you want to kind of focus more on strategy and how you can really maybe help them and solve problems? How do you approach those conversations today?
Yeah. So for renewals, as those come in, we touch every single renewal. Somebody they get an email and somebody calls them every single time. Um, and if there's a price increase, we talk to them about it. And if we feel like, if it's a contractor and they've had 3 claims and their rate's going up 15, 20,000, it's like, hey, we can shop it around. But looking at claims, it's probably not going to be good news. Right. So we kind of have those discussions on the front end, set those expectations for them. But like I said, we touch every single renewal. And what we found that helps is that if something does go south at renewal, they call us, right? Like they know that they can talk to us because they've got a good agent or they have a good relationship with their account manager or whatever. And so we had to establish that, especially at renewal, where we seen, this last year or so, you're seeing 60, 70% increases. And it's like, how do you explain that to a customer?
Exactly.
And it's like, well, you just have to tell them that you don't like it as much as they do, and it's like, hey, we're in the same boat. And once you set those expectations for the customer, like, hey, we're getting beat up with it as well.
Right.
Like it's not just you. And like, I don't want you to have to pay 60% more than your last year's premium was. Then at that point, it kind of alleviates that pressure, right? They're like, okay, they're on my side. And that's kind of been our motto. It's like, hey, we don't work for the insurance carriers. We work for you. That's the whole purpose of an insurance broker. We manage your policies and we make sure that your business is okay. Like we're a partner in what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, right? It's like we care about if you succeed, and this isn't a one-way relationship where I'm just a money hawk, trying to get scout money off your policy. It's like, no, I don't want that. It's like we're in your corner and you have to let them know that. And there are different ways and processes you could come up with it, but the way we do it is we touch every single renewal, and we talk to them. It's we don't do anything too complicated. It's pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I look at our most successful partners, I mean, the one thing that I've noticed kind of really stands out is they're problem solvers, same
Yeah,
approach, right? They're
exactly.
not locked in or, shell shocked by the renewal,
Right.
sticker shock. It's about, okay, I mean, you're going to be dealing with this anywhere you go, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
dealing with it. So how can we, solve problems, keep you protected so you can keep growing your business, keep you covered properly. But also it's kind of you see a lot taking more of a holistic approach to problem solving. And that's where our
Right.
partnership comes in too, but just being able to really get to know that business owner and build that relationship and be able to maybe solve problems that are outside of insurance, right? Maybe it's through
Sure. Yeah.
strategic partnerships. And, our partners are bringing us in to solve problems around payroll and HR, and they're making commissions there. And, and the beauty of being able to do that, whether it's through partnerships like ours or other areas, we've
Right.
seen so many instances now where sometimes, I mean, there's just nothing you can do about it. You got a
Right.
30%, 50% increase, customers mad and they're leaving
Yeah.
regardless. And
Right.
so in those situations, like we've seen so many cases now where, we've got a referral, we got one we're working on now in Florida, commission for the broker is about 15 grand annually.
Right.
We had one recently about the same size, broker lost the health insurance. He's still getting paid 15 grand for us, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's a sticky relationship. Our retention,
Absolutely.
we're not impacted by the insurance market. And so being able to kind of plug in more streams can make not necessarily a sticky client, but sticky revenue in general.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I think there's a lot of power in taking that approach. But
For sure.
one more thing I do want to talk about that, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, because this is definitely something that, I am a huge believer into, and it has to do with just kind of, I mean, really simplicity, right? Making it easy to do business with you.
Yes.
And even not just ease of doing business with you, but even probably business development, marketing across the board. Maybe give us some examples of how you guys are using technology or how technology has played a part in your growth.
Right. So if it can be automated, we automate it. Not everything can, right? Like a renewal that goes up 40, 50%. that shouldn't be automated, right?
Right.
But somebody asking for an ID card or a certificate, those things can be automated most of the time. And so whether it's an online portal that is simply like they can go on and get their own certificate or their own ID card, or
Right.
they can send a text message to a certain number and ask for an ID card and it can send them one, or a mobile app, whatever it is, right? Anything that we can use to kind of alleviate some of that service work makes it easier. Not only because I mean, we're not open 24/7, right? So if it's outside of business hours and trucker needs an ID card or certificate, making it easy for them to get that. Because the only thing that makes us better, than them going directly to Progressive or directly to a Geico or whoever, right? Is the that relationship, and people do business with people at the end of the day, but they also want it to be very easy. And so,
Yeah.
that's just a few ways we automate as much as we can. On the sales process, we automate almost all of our follow-up. We have, manual built in there, obviously, that the producer needs to do, but almost all of it's going to be automated. Like when they call, they click a button, it moves to the next stage.
Yeah.
And it just makes it easier for everybody, right? On the front end, and then on the back end, I'll kind of take you through our binding process, like when we bind a
Yeah.
policy. So we e-sign documents, right? We don't make them have to sign paper documents and have them fax or nothing like that, right? So I feel like that's the standard at this point in 2024. It's like e-sign, that's pretty standard, nothing special about that. But after those documents get e-signed, we have a couple of different processes built for E&S and then for direct bill stuff, right? So direct bill is very simple. They sign those documents. It kicks off an automation where it sends the bind request to the account manager. The account manager reviews the documents, make sure everything's signed. They go in, click the buttons to bind the policy. And then when that policy is bound, we click another button in our system and it sends out a welcome packet with all the documents, ID cards, certificates, instructions, their team contacts, all that stuff, Google reviews, all of that stuff is by and far pretty much automated. Couple clicks of the button and it happens. And so a lot of our Google reviews, I don't know if you go back and look at them, but a lot of them talk about, it was super easy to do. And that was my goal from the beginning. I didn't want to be a tech insurance or tech agency or whatever, that wasn't really the goal, but I did want it to be super easy for people to do business. And that's attracted a lot of people just because of that aspect.
A lot of people, especially if they've been doing this a long time, I feel like they're scared of technology. They're scared of losing personal feel. They're scared they're lose that touch. And so it's just not the case, man. I mean, I think what you just said is probably the best way I've heard it, because it's not about trying to be InsurTech or something like that. It's just about let's just make it simple. We did the same thing in our business. One of the best things we did for HRO is just like, we're looking at the whole process. And, I've been before HRO in the PEO industry for around 14 years. And for me, it was just so unnecessarily overcomplicated. And you lose so many prospects
in
the quoting process. And then everybody just, a lot of people are fearful to make a change because the transition process sucks.
Exactly.
And so us, it was just looking at, everything, right? Quoting, transition, and, everywhere we could identify points of friction or frustration, like, can we eliminate this? Can we make it? And that's exactly what we did. We looked at the whole process from sales to onboarding a new client, the main areas where you kind of lose people in the early stages. And we just made it super simple. And I'm telling you, man, it's probably one of the best decisions that we made. And I don't really see anybody else in our industry doing a lot of the things that we're doing, but it's been a huge factor in the success we've had. So, I think it's important at this point to embrace technology to some degree and really just think about it from, let's just make it as easy as possible for people to interact with us, to get connected with us, to go through the sales process in an easy, quick, efficient way. People's attention spans are short nowadays. So, the way we were doing it 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and just, you've got to make some changes. You've got to become easier, more efficient, and give your client or prospect a better experience. But man, we are coming up on time. Before we jump off, I wanted to give you the opportunity to just kind of, let us know where folks can find you, whether that be, your website, social platforms, where should folks be looking for Covenant Insurance Services?
Yeah. So we try to put a lot of content out on YouTube. I'm hoping to have some sort of insurance education for like actually insurance agents and producers on the YouTube channel soon. I'm working on rolling some of that out, but we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And it's all under Covenant Insurance Services. You should be able to find us, just a circle, orange and blue logo. I don't really do anything on my personal pages a whole lot. It's mostly all runs through Covenant, and we have a couple podcasts set up for Covenant. We have Squattress Trucking, which is our trucking podcast that we have. We have contractors that we do as well. So we have a couple podcasts that we do, but that's pretty much all the social media we're on, as far as that goes.
Appreciate it. That's awesome, man. Well, look, I'm Marcus again with HRO and the Broker Collective. You can always find the Broker Collective at brokercollective.xyz, as well as all the social platforms. But man, Dakota, it was great talking with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great, Marcus. I appreciate you having us.
I appreciate it as well. I think you showed a lot of stuff I'm very aligned with. So I'm a big believer. I think anybody who listens to this is going to be excited about what they hear, man. But I hope you have a good one, and I appreciate your time today.
All right, you too. We'll talk soon.
See you, man.
Thanks, Marcus.